Greetings. Here we are, another long day in a series of just crazy days. I don't really want to talk about KJ today, but I am interested in looking at the other side, looking at 7M. Why? Because, well, history tends to repeat itself. And if I know anything, I know about these fundamental churches, these non-denominational ones. I understand the thinking behind a lot of it. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about why Robert Shinn and 7M will never give up. And it has to do with martyrbating. And I've seen, hey, Heather, martyrbating. Oh, Heather, I'm done with that for the week, thank God, but I've still got dishes to wash. I left the breakfast dishes, so I got to do that. Okay, if you know who I am or you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I used to write for Pathos nearly 10 years, a column called No Longer Quivering, about quiverful, evangelical nonsense. Hey, American Princess. Hey, Grace. Hey, Christine. Hey, Another Truth. Let me just throw out there, do all the reach me things. Hit like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Don't bully anybody. These are just my opinions. I'm just coming at this with the considered opinions of all the crazy crapola I went through with my old church that I'm still processing and writing about. Okay, you guys. So martyrbating is the dumbest of all reactions, but it is something that is so inculcated in what is done at a lot of these fundamental, non-denominational churches, the desire to be martyred. Now, you know, in the history of Christianity, people really were martyred. I mean, Peter was taken to Rome and killed. Saint Stephen was full of arrows. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Catholic saints calendar and you come up with seriously a pile of righteous Christian martyrs, if that's what you're looking for, if they do exist. I heard that 7M dropped some new documents in their case. Yes, they did. And we're going to talk just a little bit, hey, Christoph fan, about that too. So 7M just dropped these documents. In my teens, martyrdom was big. It was convinced I would die for my faith, create huge anxiety. Love my grands. Hey, doing bills. Fortunately, I don't do that anymore. It's my husband's chore. I used to do that when he worked in DC, and it was like, I never liked it. It was never anything I was good at. If he dies, I'm going to be up the creek, you guys, because I am so used to not doing those stupid things anymore. But if I die, he's going to have issues because he won't be doing any of the stuff I know how to do. So martyrdom is huge in the Christian church, and it has a long legacy. And I'm not saying that it didn't. Oh, good, Christoph Ann. I'm not saying it didn't have its place, because it definitely did in the early years of the church. And if you look at the histories of the saints, and there's some interesting ones out there. And then there are a lot of them you're looking at and going, yeah, I don't think that's martyr, if that's being martyred. So the church has kind of gotten twisted up about this, like they have a lot of things. But I think it's why 7M will never let this thing drop. They're going to pursue this to the end. Yesterday, 7M filed new papers. It dropped. New papers dropped. At the same time, the person they're suing is claiming, well, my attorney already filed paperwork. Girl, documents in Pacer or it never happened. Okay, so the new documents, the few I've seen, seem to indicate that what they've done is these last week or so, last Monday, when she was doing this number about missing the deadline, they've compiled all that and they're adding it to the lawsuit. Every single time our friend keeps flapping her gums in some way, shape, or form, they are going to add this. They're going to keep burying her in paperwork until this thing is done and settled. I watched Nate's video this morning. He capped it pretty good, I thought. And then I saw a tweet they were adding more. Yes, they did add more. And what they're adding more is all the stuff that's flying out of her mouth, all the stuff flying off of her fingers. We all saw that when she missed the deadline and the papers were filed to pull the trigger to ask for summary judgment because he missed the 14 days response she was supposed to give. She's just flying off the hook now. She's just blah, 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 blah. And writing, I did not miss it. I was not given a date. I was not given a time. And then we saw this letter that she alleges was written by Graham Martin, Esquire, that has the exact same random weird capitalizations, grammar fails that she does. And I'm looking at this going, how on earth did a law firm let this go out under their name? Watching her unravel herself. Grace Peter, I thought this would happen eventually. Eventually, she would do herself in. She, like many fundamentalist churches, are her biggest supporter and worst enemy. Eventually, you screw up. You might get away with this kind of grifty, scammy behavior for a while, but eventually you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. It's going to be like that huge, awful mistake of Afghan I started making. I had to unravel it. It just gets to the point where everything unravels. I'm just going to throw that out there with her. And pride makes the fall that much more bumpy. Exactly, Grace. And it makes it that much more delicious for the rest of us watching this, who have been putting up with this woman's nonsense for like at least 2 years. One of the things that I think is interesting and is some of the messages, emails, and other stuff I get from her supporters, they're crazy allegations. I don't even bother answering them anymore. I don't answer them. I've started putting up what they accuse me of on my YouTube channel's community. I started answering questions there. And I had some interesting ones from last night. I didn't realize that I had a pile of emails sitting in my spam filter. Some from you guys that I have to answer because I'm going to answer you, but there were even more of them from Katie Joy supporters that were alleging things that I'm like, oh, I've got to sort through these and come up with another frequently asked questions because this is just, it's ridiculous, some of the things that they allege, the things they come up with. So she doesn't get this about. And this goes back to fundamentally misunderstanding what evangelical, fundamentalist, quiverful, non-denominational looks like. She doesn't understand the entire pantheon of what to be a fundamentalist means. If she did, she would know there are just some badgers you cannot poke with a sharp spoon. Oh, you're going to mod in 10 minutes? Who's going live? Because I will try to wrap myself up quickly if I know somebody else is going to be going live at the same time as myself. Because then you want to scamper off and listen to them. So you learn quickly, you don't poke these people with sharp spoons. But you have Katie, who doesn't have the history, doesn't understand. She's never really been part of any of that. She's talked about her short time in rock and roll church. And I don't think it was a very deep commitment or a deep involvement beyond teaching Sunday school and asking for money. Jesse LaRue Games, I haven't been to his yet, especially those with money. Exactly. And the people at the top are usually the ones with money. Even in the little churches, our little church, through these huge conferences sometimes, our pastor built 2 houses in the middle of not a pandemic, in the middle of a time when we were having really depressed wages and things in our area of Virginia. This man built 2 houses. There was some grumbling in our church, but most people just lopstick said, oh, what a blessing for him. While they're living on noodles and whatever is on final markdown at Walmart. It really sells out. 7M is a good shot, and they ain't backing down. Christophan, they are not going to back down. And it goes back to the whole martyrbating thing. When you're engaged in that kind of fundamentalist, evangelical, non-denomination church, you're gonna buy into the whole martyrdom thing. What part of Virginia? Well, I was actually in Culpeper County, about halfway between Culpeper and Warrenton. So I was in that strange little nexus where it starts going from horse country to skull country. And so I know they're not going to back down. They expect to be martyred. They look for it. These type of churches, oh, really? These type of churches, they look for that. They look. All the time they're looking. They're teaching kids, whoever it was that said earlier, they were afraid they were going to be martyred as a kid. They thought about it a lot. They teach that. They teach the history of some of the martyrdoms that have happened, and they get everybody all fear-mongered and riled up over it. We've seen that lately with all the conspiracy theories some of them are pushing. We see that with Jim Baker and his food buckets, which I've got a friend that's got like $6,000 of those sitting in her basement because she's convinced that we're about to have some kind of apocalypse where if she didn't have her dehydrated food, she won't be able to eat. And I keep trying to tell her that even being able to eat and sometimes wouldn't matter. But that's neither here nor there. Well, they teach this. They teach into the world. They teach we're going to be martyred because non-Christians can't stand us. Satan wants to steal our light well enough that he's going to send Satanists and witch and warlocks to pray over Halloween candy. He's going to try all these different things through culture to take us all down. They're going to try all this stuff aimed at taking you down, like you're the most important thing in all of Christendom, which always strikes me as like almost sinful and prideful, the way that some of these people are like, I want to be a warrior for Christ and be taken down and out and be martyred. That is the thinking that is behind Robert Shinn and 7M. That means they will not back down. They're not going to let this go. Even if they lose, they may sue her for other things. They may come after her in other ways that she can just barely imagine at this time. They have identified her as Satan. It's wimp. I mean, I don't know, imp, wimp, whatever. So when they identify one of these places as really or people or things as the worst that's attacking them, that is causing them all to be martyrs, they'll do different things to take that person out in spiritual ways. And it may just be something as simple as when I was doing NLQ, I got an email one day from ladies of a certain church, their Bible study group, were emailing me to tell me that they were praying that both Vicky and I had uterine cancer and died because we were martyring the good Christians of the world. I wrote back to that lady and said, well, you're going to have to pray for Jesus to restore our uteruses first because we've both had total and complete hysterectomy. So it'd be a real miracle of God if either one of us contracted uterine cancer, much less died of it. But that is the kind of thinking we're talking about, the very black and white enemy friend. Somehow think that you're somehow the enemy, even though you've done nothing to make them think that. All you've done is switch churches. You haven't even put down their church or said, oh my God, you guys are all capering around Satan, double time. You don't even do that. And they're still determined. They're just going to. So that whole thing with martyring is just everything. And what do I mean by that? I don't know about you guys, but I look at Reddit every now and then. I'm mostly addicted to, am I the a-hole or am I the devil? But every now and then I'll see funny snark. And somebody was carrying on about the Bears. If you don't know who the Bairds are, they're the family of origin of the ladies that run Girl Defined. They have tangled with us a few times when I was writing No Longer Quivering, and I think they're both pretty, well, ridiculous, but the most ridiculous is the sister Beth. Beth is grifting for baby clothes right now. She's got a big registry where she's telling all of her fans, she's hinting at it, to buy her stuff, buy stuff for the baby, buy stuff for their toddler, buy stuff for the husband, whatever. It's a typical kind of grift I see go on with a lot of these ministries and these quote missionaries, where they want all this stuff and they want to be given it. Well, some people were messing with her via the registry, and she went on this long martyr-baiting rant about how they were from the Satan or something like that. So all it takes is one person opposing you for whatever reason, and that becomes somebody who is martyring you. They're opposing you. Maybe they told you that they were out of your favorite flavor of beanie weenies, and that is being martyred. We saw Jill Rodriguez the other day rant about how she and her children had been in a thrift store, and the ladies running this thrift store had gotten onto her children for messing with some candles. And she took that directly as an attack of Satan. She started martyrbating over that, as she has done many other silly things. I think the silliest one I saw was the attack of Satan through green beans, where she cut her finger opening a can of green beans instead of going, well, that's unfortunate. That hurts. Let me grab a Band-Aid. You go, that is an attack of Satan. I hate Pink. She blocked me. Guess what? She proactively blocked me too, even though I've never said word one on any of her crap. She blocked me. I just kind of laugh over that. She's just like Lori Alexander in the fact that she will block even before you said a word. See you later, Autistic Shill. Have a good stream. So she's one of the foremost bad examples I've seen of martyrbating. And I can see that 7M might actually be enmeshed in the exact same type of thinking about being the target of Satan. Is that an act of Satan? Green bean can cutting yourself is apparently an act of Satan in Jill Rodriguez's book. And makes me laugh. Now, there was a split off from my old church of people that I was friends with, and I'm still friends with, that have a different, more balanced way of handling it. They say when things like that happen and they're tempted to say that was an attack of Satan, it's like, big deal. It's something trying to stop us. If that was Satan, I'm not glorifying him by saying it. So I think that's more of a balanced way. If you're going to accuse Satan of everything, you shouldn't probably give him the glory, which is all that Jill does when she posts these things. She seems to have slowed down a little bit about posting pictures of her and info about her mother post-stroke. And I'm glad, because it was becoming so exploitive. And she used that to martyrbait and to raise money. Martyrbating and grifting seem to go hand in hand. Now, I'm not making any kind of claims about 7M, Robert Shinn, Shekinah Church, and grifting, because I don't know enough about them to know they're grifting. The only thing I know about Shekinah and Robert Shinn for sure is that he mentioned that he promoted both Bethel Redding in Redding, California, and Hillsong. And I consider both of those churches high demand religious organizations, or CULTs. And to say that those churches were so righteous just tells me I don't even want to know. So when I saw that, I blocked him. I blocked everything to do about 7M from my social medias. I did a preemptive block, even though he posted a couple times on mine. because I just don't want any part of it. I came out of that tradition. Those people at those churches still try to lob things at me. So to know that they're linked with those other churches and to know the kind of martyrbating that has gone on at those churches and others connected to them, world without end, tells me all I need to know about 7M. And I'm really torn in this 7M suit. Well, I want to see our mutual friend have a heaping dose of reality served to her so that she stops defaming other people. She stops plagiarizing. She stops creating harm in people. Just having this guy with this religious organization that I cannot support doing it. So I'm looking at this kind of like I don't know who to root for in this situation. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm soft rooting for Shinn, even though I don't approve of the churches his church is linked to. And there's no way to find out much about his church because it's incredibly secretive as far as I've seen. You know, there's a song by the Newsboys that mentions the phrase, "You're only as sick as your secrets." There's a lot of truth to that. And if you are part of a church where there's a lot of secrecy going on, it's not going to be a healthy situation. I'm not saying that Shekinah Church is a secretive, sick church. I'm just suggesting that maybe that may be what's going on with them. I don't know. But I do know that so many churches out there have really had a humbling with some of the things that have happened between the SA going on that's been exposed, that they've all shrieked and gone, "Oh, we're not that bad. I'm sorry we covered that up," but blah, blah, blah. And it's been some pretty big churches this has happened to. I mean, a lot of these churches are the very ones that are throwing rocks at the Catholics for this going on for generations in the Catholic Church. Yet the second it happens at their churches, they're like, yeah, no, that person is lying, or we're just going to tell the victim they need to heal and we're going to sweep this under the rug. More of that stuff is coming out now. And they like to pretend that's acts of Satan too. That's not acts of Satan. When you have a pastor that's doing that nonsense, that has harmed people doing that nonsense, that's not an act of Satan. At some point, the church has to start taking responsibility, the church worldwide, for these things and step up and say, you know, that person chose to do that thing that is wrong. We apologize for that. We were wrong to just sweep it under the rug. There has to be healing. There has to be accountability. There has to be all this stuff. But at the same time, you got the secretive stuff going on. Good evening. Is 7M a church? No. And I need to clarify that. 7M is a management company for the dancers who are going all over and dancing for these different companies. This is the company that does their management. The company that does the management, the guy who owns the company, Robert Shinn, who happens to be the pastor of Shekinah Church, and he employs the dancers. And the dancers themselves are the ones suing, not the church. The church is not suing. The church is a separate entity. I'm just highly suspicious of Shinn and 7M because of my years of experience with these kinds of churches like Shekinah, like Bethel Redding, like, I don't even know the name of the church in Wilmington we had our deliverance ministry at. They've changed the name of the church like 3 or 4 times. They changed the ministry name because they kept getting sued. Like Randy Johnson's church in Harrisburg, PA. Like so many churches that I could just shake a stick at, that are all teaching this weird prosperity gospel martyrdom thing. They're kind of intermeshed. God will bless you and grant you all this money or the wildest desires of your heart, whatever. And Satan, wily Satan will martyr you. What I have to say about martyring is these people, Jill Rodriguez, I'm looking at you, who claim they are being martyred are just having very normal pushback to things. And it just kind of blows my mind because I'm not used to, well, yeah, I'm not now, but I was used to it. I'm not used to people who label the very normal ups and downs, the very normal downs of life as always the work of Satan. It makes me remember that song, Blessed Be Your Name. One of the churches I went to, they only wanted to sing the first verse, which is, Blessed be your name. This is how long it's been. I forgot what it is, but the verse that I'm thinking was the second verse. On a road marked with suffering, when there's pain in the offering, blessed be your name. Man, I'm pitchy. That was the second verse. In many churches that I went to, they only wanted to sing the first verse, which was all positive and uplifting. But in reality, life is up and down. I think that Satan doesn't do a damn thing. We shoot ourselves in the foot, screw ourselves up. We don't take personal responsibility. We all do bad. How many times have we seen that recently with different pastors and things? It's just too many times. So I'm looking at this 7M thing and thinking that they are just tying themselves, they're just enmeshed in this whole prosperity gospel, Satan is torturing us, martyrbating thing, and they're doing it hard. And I think it's going to play out in bad ways. I don't think that they are open to settlement at all. I think that they are going hardcore because they're true believers. They believe in this gospel, this version of the gospel, and they're not going to back down. They're going to go hard. And if they lose or come from a different angle, they're going to go hard. And if they lose again, they're going to go hard. I think the biggest example of that I've seen lately that just scares the willies out of me is I saw this play out with the new Independent Fundamentalist Baptists, the CULT run by Stephen Anderson, when he picked up a few critics from the Reason Files, #1 and #2, Robert Tuttle, who has gone radio silent on his channel, and then why can I never remember names when I'm supposed to? And his partner who died in a back alley with his head crushed, with his head stove in where someone hit him. And the Mistake on the Lake police in Cleveland, Ohio decided that he had a heart attack, fallen in the alley, and hit his head. Not the police. Let me rephrase that. I believe it was the coroner's office that came up with that explanation. They are the type not to ever back down. And why do I think they had something to do with it? Because before this guy's body was even found, they were posting that he was dead on YouTube. They were posting rejoicing things about him being dead. Now, they removed all of that after we said, hey, if you knew he was dead before they even found his body, how do you know that? So they took all that down. You want to see something scary, that is it to me. That is what true believer mode looks like when it's taking all the way out. Now, am I saying that 7M and Shinn would show up, kidnap her, and bash her in the head? No, absolutely not. Who does that? Oh, no, but I think they would do a lot of things to make life very miserable for her. So I'm suspecting we're just seeing the little toe in the water with all of this, and it won't end until they're satisfied, until they feel like their position and has been that they've been defended, that their martyrbaiting has stopped. And I don't know what that's going to take. Hopefully, it won't take a body in an alleyway with them posting, "Oh, I know she's dead," because that would be really bad. As much as I'm not a fan of hers, and I'm very upset about the lies that she and Uni have been saying about me, while she stole a lot of my content, I don't wish anything bad on her. I just want her to stop lying and to stop plagiarizing. That's it. It's simple. I wish her, Todd, and the child the best. I know she doesn't believe that, but it's true. I just want her to stop. And the problem is, we've reached a point in this where there is no stopping. There is going to be no stopping. They've gone past that because of her doubling down. And I'm afraid for her now. And I know that Shinn and them won't back down. This is going to just continue. It'll just continue. And probably in court. That'll probably be the venue that they take, would be my guess. And I think, I don't know for sure, but I think Shinn probably has pretty deep pockets. Again, I don't know that to be a fact. These are just all of my opinions. But I'm calling it like I'm seeing it. Martyrbating, thinking you're the martyr, you don't back down. You don't back down until you're vindicated in some small way or large way. Wow, I went places where I did not think I was going to go with this today. Dear Mr. Shinn, I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm not saying that you're going to do this, that you're going to unalive KJ, not at all. I'm just saying I think you're the kind of people that you're engaged in your prosperity gospel. You're not going to back down. And that frightens me. That frightens the hell out of me for her. Because there are other things that are worse than unaliving somebody, like taking their entire life savings away from them, making them sell their house, leaving them financially bereft. I mean, because if you're unalive, guess what? You don't need money. I guess I started thinking about this because right now I'm reading a book about the craziest case I've ever seen that had to do with internet culture. A case about a lady who had people killed because they unfriended her on Facebook. Can you believe that? And I think about that. That kind of gives me the willies because there's so many people from my old church that I have unfriended or who have unfriended me in the last 5 or 6 years. I was writing in my book about a case of being unfriended by some people that we had been really close with. We weren't close with them by the time we left because a lot of dirty, nasty water got under the bridge. The biggest part of the dirty, nasty water was that one of them had had an affair and had used me as excuse one time when he was out catting around. So I pretty much ended the friendship at that point. Once I realized I had been used without my permission as an affair, lost weekend excuse. And who does that? I mean, really, who does that? I ended the friendship pretty much. And I was still Facebook friends with them because this person had gotten kind of violent with me towards the end of my time. He grabbed me by the arm and shook me one time and left bruises on my arm. You could see fingerprints. Fingerprints. So this was a guy who had violent tendencies who I was afraid of. And it happens because I think sometimes these churches are inhabited by people who just want to control others. And if they have to use fear, intimidation, and the occasional physical thing, they'll do it. They may do something like deprive you of something like food or water, lock you up, sort of thing. But it seems to bring out the dictator and all these guys. I don't know why that would be, but it does. Okay. I'm going to go outside and touch some grass now or paint or do something because I have to get away from my iPad, the internet, everything else. It's just too revolting right now with everything going on. Okay, you guys, try to have a good day. And I'm sorry I've gone off the deep end here. But that's the way my rabbit hole runs, unfortunately. I tend to hop around a whole lot. KJ became the judge and the jury without having proof. She had no proof. You're exactly right. She did not. And she did become the judge and the jury. And sadly, they're going to be the judge and the jury of her in some way, shape, or form. And it probably is tied to the whole martyrbating thing. I'm afraid for her. I'm afraid for her at their hands, the kind of financial losses they're going to enact on her. Particularly if they decide to enact the $39 million loss. How do you even pay $39 million back if you're not Warren Buffett or someone like that? I mean, it's a big chunk of cheddar. That is a big chunk of cheddar. Aziz Mahmoud. Yes, exactly. Never mind Shinn. She is lucky she isn't from the Bay Area. She could have had someone gone real life in her already. It has nothing to do with religion. The hurt. That's the thing. And I'm glad she's not from New Orleans, because if she tried to pull that crap, she might end up with cement shoes on in the Mississippi. I was telling a girlfriend of mine the other day about this. Recently, I read a book by Ice-T. I know the actor who is in Law and Order SVU, which is one of my favorite television shows. He and a friend of his from his old neighborhood wrote a book together. He wrote a chapter. The old neighbor wrote the chapter, his close friend. They came to a fork in the road, and Ice-T went this way and his buddy went that way. And the book was all about that. It was about their journeys. The friend ended up in jail so many times it was ridiculous. And she now turned his life around, and he is a Christian. He's turned his life around in the biggest way possible. Now, Ice-T has turned pretty straight there for a guy who was doing licks, as he called them. Licks is when you would go in with a hammer or whatever. You would walk into a fancy jewelry store and say, "Stand back, we're breaking the case. This is a robbery." They knock the glass out of the case, scoop up all the Rolexes, and run. It kind of gave me, I started thinking about that a lot after reading that book, because the time when he was doing licks, and he said he was traveling all over the US and doing these licks at these different jewelry stores. I actually worked at manufacturing jewelers for a couple of years during that time at college. I even used to do the commercials for that particular store. They filmed me holding a handful of Rolex, looking just, So I was reading that and going, oh, holy cow. Yeah, people in the Chicago area don't play either. You're right. So we had a situation one day where I feel like we were being cased for a lick, because two guys came in that we did not know in any way, shape, or form. They were there a long time. They were acting suspicious. And my boss was freaking out. Freaking out. I was freaking out so bad I was standing where near the burglar alarm button was, because we had a silent alarm in about 10 different places. All you do is stomp on it, and it brought the police quickly. We were all standing near those buttons while these guys were in there, because it was obvious they were up to no good. The guys left. My boss picked up the phone and made one call to the people who were doing protection for him. And I'm not talking about legal protection. I'm talking about illegal protection, the kind involving the Cosa Nostra. Is that how you say it? No punishment. Yeah, no punishment for these guys either. So my boss picked up the phone. The guy who owned the jewelry store picked up the phone, and he called his contact that he apparently was paying some kind of mob protection. And his person said, "Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it." Those guys ended up in the Mississippi, let me tell you. So it no lie. If you pull nonsense in certain parts of the country, you're going to end up dead. I mean, there's just no way around that. So when I was reading this book, I was thinking about all that. I was thinking about my old job, the boss, everything else that had happened. And I was thinking about people ending up in the Mississippi with cement shoes on because it happens. KJ is only trying to take everything from 7M, but anyone associated with Steve, anyone associated, she's trying to wipe them out if they ask for a default judgment for 1 million. As much for shilling, for dollars, KJ does. She knew what the risks were. She might, Airwaves, I don't think she quite did. Hey, Airwaves mom, I don't think she quite understands those risks because I'm not saying that Shinn is going to do any of this or has done any of this. Not at all. I'm not accusing him of any crime or even thinking about a crime. I'm just stating that there are some places in the U.S. where if you act the way she has acted and you attack people like she has done and accuse them of crimes, very bad things can happen to you. Just pointing that out because that is what happened with Todd Ferguson in Cleveland, or was it? Yeah. I believe to this day he was taken out. The coroner's office is all wrong about what happened to him. I believe he was taken out because people at the new IFB knew he was dead before the body had been found, and they were posting about it all over. So there's some people you can't take on. And I've gotten worried for her a couple of times with some of the people that she's taken on. Like she's taken on the fundamentalist Mormons, FLDS, a few times. Those guys are scary. Some of their people end up in the desert in various places that take them on. Scientology has a very, very, very scary history. And that's not even accounting the 10 trillion little ones out there that would take it to a scary place. The world has got a lot more scary and violent in a lot of ways. We were talking about this morning, my husband and I, because we have heard that are not good. We don't keep cash here. That's our rule. We don't keep cash here. We don't keep cash on ourselves. If we have to go pay a bill, we go to the bank, we pay the bill. But we don't keep cash. People rob people here routinely. Somebody I know got their house broken into. They took everything of value and they took the safe. If you are a gringo with a safe here and somebody who's not a gringo knows about it, you're going to get robbed at some point. They're going to come in and take the safe and bust it open. So, like here, you have to really be conscious of what is you're doing and who is around to minimize the risks of those things happening. You think 7M would go as far as that with being so public? I can't stand KJ, but I hope they aren't thinking that type of group. Airwaves, I don't think 7M would do that. I don't think that. Robert Shinn is too public. Shekinah Church is too public. Now, whether it's a rogue member you might have a rogue member too at Shekinah that has heard Robert running his mouth about KJ. You can't be responsible for that. They could pull something, but it's very unlikely. This is why my husband made me give up scam baiting, hardcore scam baiting, which is a shame because it's the most fun you can have for free. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that. He was afraid someone would show up on our doorstep and do something evil. Well, that's not a consideration here because we're behind that 12-foot concrete wall with motion detectors and razor blade and various things. But in the States, it was really a worry of his if somebody would take after me because of NLQ or whatever. Star Lily, you can wind it back. I'm telling people about how I think that you got to be real careful about who you talk about as far as how you do it, because you could end up wearing cement shoes in the Mississippi. Those things happen. I mean, and you just have to So I urge all of you, be very aware of who is around you and that sort of thing. Some of those scam baiting channels are great. They are airwaves. And I used to do it through a website called 419eater.com, who has some of the funniest baits I've ever encountered. And I liked doing it. I got a lot of criticism this morning from someone for doing it. And I found out later that she was upset because I'd mentioned the word Nigerian and she was married to a Nigerian. So I just backed off and shut up at that point because she couldn't understand it. She said, "Why would you want to do that as a hobby?" It's fun. It's fun, and you feel like you're helping others when you do that. That's why. Um, and I've had a number of friends that have been involved in it who actually pulled me into it because I had never heard of it before. So you have Catherine sitting back thinking she's the mob boss, who's actually rather vulnerable, very vulnerable, sitting up in her basement there in her little town in Minnesota. Oh, so always be aware. And there are times when, I worked for NLQ, I worked for Pathos, and I was writing for Pathos. When I was well aware I was coming up against some very dangerous people, and I tried to confine most of my conversation to the Quiverful movement, to people like Nancy Campbell, Debbie Pearl, not the sort of people that are going to show up on your front doorstep with, I don't know how many of you guys watch Breaking Bad. Do you remember when the Salamanca twins showed up with a big silver hatchet? You got to kind of be conscious of that. You just don't do that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go because I'm skeeving myself out, and I don't want to end up wearing lead shoes in the Tempesque here or anywhere else at all. And I think tomorrow I'm hoping to do a Costa Rican one because somebody asked me about places to go that aren't touristy, that are absolutely must-sees here. And I have a whole list of them because I've learned these are natural consequences to her behavior. And maybe the only way she gets the message that going after people's ability to make money doesn't end well. Barbara, that could be. KJ should be careful, especially with the giddy joy she shows when talking about certain stories. And you add those kind of stories into the mix, and it's just that emotions get ramped up and people really get nutty. I mean, especially, when I've heard her talking about CP and mentioning the names of people's children, I'm just jaw dropped because you can't approach those topics with that kind of giddy joy. It just doesn't reflect well on you. Okay, so I'm going to go wash my one sink full of dishes, and then I'm going to put together a fake chicken pot pie. I'm having a chicken pot pie craving, and you cannot get any kind of frozen cheap foods here like you can in the States. And I know mine will likely be much better than what I could have bought in the States anyway. Love you guys. Try not to get drug into this. I mean, I know I'm talking about this way more than I should, but it was striking me this morning that we have to talk about how those kinds of churches really love their martyr baiting. I'll see you tomorrow.